Hi, I'm Chad with Move for a Guitar. This lesson is from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to explain power chords and how to build them. First off, if you'd like the diagrams for everything in this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. And this e-guide will be something that you can study and use as a reference for years to come. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download it. This is part 4.12 from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So in the last lesson, we talked about suspended chords or sus chords, and I explained how they weren't major or minor because they didn't have a third in them. They didn't have a major third or a minor third in them. They just had a root, a second or a fourth, and a fifth. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about another type of chord that doesn't have a third in it as well. So these aren't major or minor. They can be used as either, and those are called power chords. And power chords are much simpler than suspended chords, and that's because all you're really doing is taking the third out and keeping the root and the perfect fifth. So a power chord is just a root and a perfect fifth, and that creates a power chord. And because of that, you can use it as a major chord or a minor chord. The only place you couldn't use this in major scale harmony would be as the 7 chord, because that's a diminished chord. It's built off a diminished triad, so that has a flat 5 in it. But with the power chord, we're using a root and a perfect fifth. So you could use this as a 1 chord, a 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, or a 6 chord. And power chords are also known as 5 chords, and they're usually written as 5 chords. For example, if we had a C power chord, it would be written as a C5. And it's written as a C5 because it's telling you that there's just a 5 in it. There's no third or any other intervals. You just have a root and a fifth. And on your screen right now is a really common way to play a power chord starting with the 6-string root. You would just play the root and the fifth intervals. So technically with this voicing right here, all you're playing is a perfect fifth interval shape. And you could move that down to the next set of strings for the 5th and the 4th string and do the exact same. Just play a fifth interval shape. That would be a power chord. Where it's drawn on my diagram right now is an F, so that would be an F5 or an F power chord. Or another really common way to play the power chords would be, if we were starting back with the 6-string root, would be to double up the root, so play the root an octave higher as well. So then you would have root, perfect fifth, and then another root an octave higher, and that's a fuller sounding way to play a power chord. When you just play the perfect fifth interval shape, it's not as full sounding. It still sounds good, but this is going to sound a lot fuller when you add that extra root in there. And then again, you could do that on the next set of strings on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings. So on my screen right now is an F5 or an F power chord using the doubled up root. And technically, anytime you just play a root and a fifth of a chord, you're playing a power chord, but the ones I just showed you are the most common ways to play them by far. So I think it's worth starting with those shapes and playing around with them. And you can just move these up and down the fretboard and see what sounds good together, because like I said, you don't have to worry about it being major or minor. So just play different ones together. You could start a whole step down with the power chord and then move up a whole step and keep doing that, or move in half steps and see what sounds good together. And you'll be able to find really cool sounding progressions just using power chords. And I have a lesson on where I showed how to actually do this on the guitar. I actually played it and I just improvised playing different power chords up and down the fretboard and showed you different options for what you could do and different sounds you could come up with. So I have a lesson that you can watch where I did that. That would be really useful to you if you want to start playing power chords. So there's a link on the screen if you want to go watch that. That would be worth your time to watch that and see some options that you have. And you can also play these power chords in open position. So if you were to play the one with the 6-string root, you would end up with an E5 because your roots are E's, and then you have the fifth of E, and then you could play it with another root or without this root, just depending what you wanted. But this is a really common chord that you'll find in rock, an E5 played like this in open position, or an A5 is common as well. to play that in open position, because if you go down to the next set of strings, your open string on the 5th string is an A, so if you play the 5th and then you could play the root an octave higher or without it, you'd be playing an A5, because this is an A here, this is an E here, so that's why it's an E5 and an A5 in open position. But like I said, you'll find those shapes a lot in more straight ahead rock. And then looking at this chart again with the chord name formula, common chord symbol, it's really simple. We just have the power chord. The formula is super simple. It's just a root and a perfect fifth. And then the common way to see it is written as a 5. So if it was written in C, it'd be a C5. So those are power chords. Like I said, you can play these for a major chord or a minor chord. So you can play it as 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, or 6 chord in major scale harmony. And just have fun with these. You can come up with really cool sounds playing with these. You can come up with cool chord progressions, cool songs, and get a lot of use out of power chords. And they're used in rock all the time, but you don't have to play rock to play them. You could play them even in jazz or even more advanced music and blues. So don't think that they're just a really simple chord that you're not going to learn if you don't like rock or don't want to play rock. There's something that you can play in pretty much any style. So go ahead and move on to the next lesson, where I'm going to review everything we've talked about up to this point in this series, and I'm going to give you some more insights and I think tie everything together for you. So it's really worth watching that and making sure that you have a clear grasp on everything we've been talking about so far. And like I said, I'll lay it out a little differently so that you can see it from a different angle and have everything laid out together. And be sure to download the eGuide. All the charts and diagrams are in there. And be sure to subscribe, because we add at least one new lesson every day.